everybody, welcome to class today. We're going to be looking at contractions. So we're going to go through, and for our bell ringer, I want you guys to have your bell ringer papers out. We're going to go through our bell ringer, review some objectives, go to our daily language lounge, and we're going to discuss what we're going to be talking about this today and this week, and how we're going to use it in our writing to make it stronger and better. So go ahead and come along with me. So we're just going to open up the presentation menu. Okay, awesome. All right, so today in your bell ringer, I want you guys to spot the difference. So you can see we have this funny little cartoon, right? We show the woman and she's pregnant, and it says can't, should've, it's, and wasn't. And then the man with her says, oh God, she's having contractions. Now, what I want you to tell me is, what is the difference between what the man thinks his wife is experiencing and what she's saying? What is she saying versus what the man thinks she's doing? So I want to let you guys think about that for a minute. Have some think time. I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to think about what that is, and I'm going to give you 30 seconds to write about it. If you don't know what it is, that's okay. We're going to think about it. We're going to write it down, and then we're going to talk about it. So we're going to think, we're going to write, and then we're going to talk. All right, before we do anything else. So go ahead and go. So at this point with my students, they're reflecting, they're thinking about what they're thinking. It's really important for the kids to get think time. So we're doing that right now as they're doing this bell ringer. They're going through it, they're experiencing it. They're starting to be front loaded with the word contraction. They might not have recognized that, although when we get to it, they're going to see it as kind of like, oh, I know what this is, but they don't know the proper term for it. So it's not a vocabulary, but it is front-loading the vocabulary that they're going to need for the content for the lesson. Okay, guys, so we're going to come back, and at this point, I would go ahead and go through the lesson with them and talk to them about what they think is going on in this cartoon. I don't need them to have it because I'm going to give them an opportunity at the end of the lesson to review this again, and then we're going to discuss it again. Okay, so welcome to our Daily Language Lounge. The Daily Language Lounge is something I've been doing for almost my whole teaching career. It's from the Fundamental 5, and it's student-friendly learning objectives. So, and we're also doing language objectives, and it's kind of embedded in together. So we have the Today I Will, learn the role of contractions in writing and the formation of words so that I can deliver and convey my writing. Everybody go my writing in a way that flows and makes sense. I know I have it when I can. Construct, contractive phrases with my group members and use them to create a sentence using contractive phrases that make sense. So what the kids have to do is they're going to have to know this. And if you notice, I color code. I go red, typically yellow, but yellow is hard to see against the white background, and then green, and it's like a stoplight. So red, we're starting, we're going down, and I go through this with the kids. We're going to start by just learning the role of contractions in writing. By the middle of the lesson, they're going to be and they're going to start seeing how they can use it in their own writing. And then lastly, they're going to produce a product for me. They're going to give me a sentence after they do their group activity, after they do their richness activities, and then they're going to give me a 3, 2, 1, just letting me know what they understood, what they're still not sure about, and then they're going to give me that product of the sentence at the end of it. Okay, so guys, we're going to let's review contractions. So some of you have heard the word contractions before. How many of you have heard it? Okay, good. That's good. So let's go ahead and review that. So we have a contraction is a word made from two words that are brought together. They're merged together. So we have the word cannot. That goes from being cannot to can't. So anytime we want to think contraction, I want you guys to go like this. Contraction. Everybody do that with me. Contraction. Again, everybody. Contraction. So we're going to take a word from being long to a contraction. So we have the word cannot, can't. We have the word would. We have the words would and not, would not, wouldn't. Would and not, wouldn't. And what's that called? A contraction. Good. So this is just going to be a quick video, and I want you guys to pay special attention to the first few seconds of the video. It's going to tell you what we do with a certain piece of punctuation to create these contractions. What is something we notice in both of these? Good. They have this, right? They have the apostrophe. That's called the apostrophe. So let's see what the role of the apostrophe in creating a contraction. What are we going to look for? The apostrophe in creating the contraction. I would go play the video in its entirety, but for
I am
this, I'm just going to show you really quick how I would do it with the kids. Let's watch what the hammer does. Okay, so we go from long to a contraction. We're going to put a comma. Why is this helpful, you guys? Why is it helpful to take it from I am thinking about cats to I am thinking about cats? What happens? Exactly, right? You go from having something that's a little bit longer, it doesn't flow as well, to being a little bit more, a little bit better to read and to write, and it makes sense. So let's continue. Okay, now we just saw that apostrophe. We talked about the apostrophe, right? An apostrophe has three main functions. For today, though, we're only going to focus on the blue one, but let's go ahead and review the three functions of apostrophe. It's to form possessive nouns. So we all use apostrophes when we do writing. We say children's toys, women's clothes. So the apostrophe shows this. Mrs. Villanueva's glass. I own the glass. So the apostrophe creates my ownership, the possessive noun. I own this, right? And then in this case, to show an omission of letters. We cannot create a contraction if we don't get rid of some letters. Like I am. You saw that the apostrophe got rid of, it omitted the A. The I am was gone. It got rid of it. It created I'm. So the apostrophe gets rid of things. If you don't have this in your contraction, that doesn't make sense. You're going to have to go back and look at that. So when you guys write them out, make sure that you add your apostrophes. Okay? And then lastly, to indicate plurals of letters, numbers, and symbols. Okay? Let's go ahead and continue. So let's practice our contraction construction. What I'm going to have you guys do is you're all working in a group. So group, you came in and you were already assigned into groups. You're all sitting in the tables that you were assigned to. These groups are heterogeneous, meaning that they are different levels. I usually have advanced to advanced high, or beginning with an advanced, and they help each other. What I do not try to do is I try not to group the same level. I try to make them heterogeneous, not homogeneous, just because I need their language development to grow. So I need them to talk. And then I'll also give them sentence stems, and that I'm going to have that you see in the examples here on the slide. So it's creating an environment to where they can talk. This is from English 3D, and this is also from some of my trainings. So I usually do multi-levels in the groupings. For this particular lesson, the groups are in two. And then, so I'm going to go back. So guys, on your envelope, on your desk, you have an envelope. On the envelope of each group, you'll see you have words. Each of you have 5 words in your envelope. And in the paper that is on the desk with it, you have 5 boxes that you need to fill out. So I want with your shoulder partner to discuss what the word you have is and what is the meaning of the word that you have. For example, if you have the word cannot, what does cannot mean? Those are 2 different words. What do they mean? What does the word can mean and what does the word not mean? I know that seems simple, but it's going to be important when you create your contraction. So I want you guys to look at the words can and not. What do they look like? In your group, you're going to discuss. You're going to say, I think, partner A, I think the word can means. Partner B, do you agree or disagree with what that means? Okay? Third, when you are ready, find another group. So once you guys know what your word means, what your first part of your contraction means, you're going to get up, you're going to move, everyone's walking around the room, and you're just going to find another group, and they're going to have another set of words. Your mission is to find the word with the apostrophe that's going to make your two words a contraction. So if I had cannot, what am I going to look for? What was the example that we saw on the previous slide? What am I going to look for from the other groups? What do they need to have? Okay. There we go. So what am I going to look for from the other group? I'm going to look for the N apostrophe T. That is going to take me from having cannot to can't, right? Or if I had would not, I would look for the group that had the N apostrophe T. So that same group can go with different words. Does that make sense? And then here I'm clarifying the directions of the group activity. So we're going to come back. And then step 4, once you find your second group, you're going to describe what does the new word mean. Did the meaning change because you made a contraction, or did the meaning stay the same? Okay, guys, and then also this is going to be a cheat sheet. Once you run out, because you will run out of the words that you do know. So once you run out, I want everyone to look up here, and this is going to be able to help you. This will help you. These are all contractions, so it's kind of like a cheat sheet, and this tells you what the contraction is and how it's used in different tenses. Okay? So you're going to use this to help you. It's your cheat sheet. Okay, so for example, let's just go over this one more time before we get started. If my final word is wouldn't, what did group 1 have? Good. Group 1 had would. And what did group 2 have? They had not. So they made wouldn't. Okay? Now, at this point, the students have done their activity. They've moved around. The activity, I would block about 10 to 12 minutes for it. I would be walking around. Granted, though, just depending on my class, the time of day, it might go a little bit faster or slower. If it's after lunch, the kids are a little bit more wiggly, so it's a little bit harder to reel them back in. It just depends on where they at and at the levels. If I had a class of mainly beginners and intermediates, obviously I would scaffold down. I wouldn't do 5. I would maybe do 3 phrases. I also would change the groupings. I would change it maybe from 2 to 1 or to 3, but no more than 4 per group, because I would want them to make it. And then I would probably make it more of like a station situation, just depending on the level of students that I had and their academic language proficiency. I also might put in stems, sentence stems that physically would sit on their desk, which I usually have anyway, but I would probably create special stems particularly for this lesson. Okay, so at this point, once we're done, we're going to come back and we're going to review this. So just as like a fun thing, okay, guys, now that you know what contractions are, what was the man saying to his wife? What was going on in this lesson? And then that's when they would at that point be like, oh, well, she was using a contraction, but he thought that she was having contractions. And so we'll talk about that. Was she having a contraction? Was she saying contractions, or was she having contractions? And we'll play around with that and have some fun with it if there's time. And then I asked them to do a 3, 2, 1. So the 3 is list 3 things you learned about contractions. Guys, I want you to list for me 3 things on the Post-it note that's on your desk. Everybody had a Post-it note at the beginning of class. It's a lot of getting things ready at the beginning of class. The envelopes are on the desk at the beginning of the class. The stationary Post-it notes are there at the beginning of class. Students already know, and norms are already in place to know that they're supposed to write their name on the back of the Post-it. And then they're already accustomed to the 3, 2, 1. 3 things that they learned, 2 things that they weren't certain of or they didn't understand, and then 1 example of the contraction in a sentence. And then to further help them, I give them another example. Mrs. Villanueva couldn't find her car keys. That is an example of could not, the contraction coming together. So guys, I want you to list to me 3 things that we learned about contractions. You can talk about how contractions need an apostrophe to be able to be put together. You can talk about how contractions are one long word being made into a short word. You can even talk about number 3, how contractions make it easier for the readers to read our writing. Contractions help you in your writing, and they can make things easier. We also speak in contractions, don't we? Do you say, I cannot go out tonight? No, you would say, I can't go out tonight, you guys. It's also a way of writing what we speak. So as you get into higher academia, you don't want to use as many contractions, but at this point in your writing, it's okay. And then at that point, I would just reassure them, because for some students, they're still learning and they speak it socially, and so they might not know what a contraction is, so it's better to let them understand how to properly write a contraction in their essays. Two things they didn't understand. If you really still don't understand how to use the apostrophe, for example, we can go ahead and put that as something we need to clarify a little bit. Also, maybe you're not really sure what a contraction is. Are all things made contractions? What else can be made a contraction? Maybe you want to learn more about that. And then one example of contraction in a sentence. I want you to use a contraction that maybe you see on the slideshow you all have in your Google Classroom, so you can use your notes. Or you can use some of this ones. I use this one. Mrs. Van Wella couldn't find her car keys. You are not allowed to use my contraction word, but you guys can use something like that in your own sentence if it makes sense to you. After you're done with that, stay there. We still have about 6 minutes of class left. Raise your hand. I'll review it, and then I'm going to pick, if you would like to volunteer to share, we'd love to hear you, okay? And then anyone that participates will get another ticket. The tickets are a token system that I use. At the end of the 9 weeks, the student with the most tickets is able to collect a prize, or they can go ahead and use it on a low test or quiz grade. The tickets I use is the token system as a means of lowering the effective filter for the kids, because for some of them it's, even though they feel comfortable, they feel comfortable talking to me, but not in front of their peers. So the tickets are a way to kind of encourage them, and they really like it. They really get into it. And I had really great results this year with the ticket system. They look like little movie tickets, and the kids get a couple of prizes. Also, at the end of the activity, we come back together, we do a quick review as a class with their Post-it notes addressing their questions. And then as they're leaving the door, I have on my door, it's called Mastery Boulevard, and they stick their Post-it notes. So whatever the overall feeling, if they feel they were in the green, they got it, they put their Post-its in Post-it parking on the green line. If they're confused, they'll put it in the red. And that's just a really great way for me to do a quick informal assessment with the kids to see where they're at. So thank you so much. I look forward to your feedback. Doctor, thank you. Bye.